Welcome to Confessions of an Entrepreneur, powered by RG. My name is Carl Swansbury, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to have Mike Ames on my podcast. For those of you who have not had the pleasure or privilege of meeting Mike before, Mike is a highly successful entrepreneur who has set up, scaled up, and sold many businesses for tens of millions of pounds. Today, Mike is a business coach and consultant and spends all of his working week providing guidance, advice, and direction to other entrepreneurs who are scaling up their businesses in pursuit of a value event. I'm thrilled today to have Mike at Banyan on my Confessions of an Entrepreneur podcast, and I welcome you, our viewers. Mike, first of all, just wanted to thank you for agreeing to feature on my Confessions of an Entrepreneur podcast. It's absolutely brilliant to have you today.
I'm delighted to be here. It was a long trek. I was hoping for the company helicopter, but that didn't show up. So I drove.
Indeed.
It's a long trek.
Well,
I've listened to three ebooks on the way up.
Well, thank you so much for making the journey.
Pleasure.
From Manchester to the Northeast, Mike. For the viewers who haven't met you and for the viewers who don't know who you are, it would be fantastic if you could perhaps just give me an insight into why now you choose to spend all of your time advising and coaching entrepreneurs as they start up and scale up their businesses. Bearing in mind, of course, you've built and sold many businesses for tens of millions of pounds. So why now do you, Mike, dedicate your time to helping others?
Well, interesting question. So I'll go back to come forward. So I'm not going to get distracted, but when we set the second business up, the one that you sold for us, I realized why I'd sold the first business, because I really wasn't that interested in running a recruitment company anymore. And there I am with a recruitment company. So I lasted about 4 or 5 years, then started to do things to interest me. And one of the things was coaching. I'm not a trained coach. I'm more of a consultant, but it's helping people. And then that became more and more prevalent with me. And then 2010, I left, and the intention was to do it as a hobby, almost, something to occupy me. I love to help people. I love to see change in people. There's a problem, here's a solution, put the two together and you've moved forward. And then it just sort of grew, and then we took on someone and then someone else, and there's 6 of us now. And that's as big as it's going to get. There's going to be no more. But it is this idea, and there's something else actually I want to tell you as well, right? But it is this idea of passing on what I've learned in a way that you can see the difference. And the other reason is, this is going to sound strange, I'm 65 years old now. He was supposed to say, you don't look it, but whatever.
I'm too honest for that, Mike.
Oh, there you go. Right. But I'm 65. I'm coming to the end of my journey. Right? I'm no longer on the ascendancy or even on the flat bit. I'm coming to the end. I have learned so much because I've made tons of mistakes, and I've seen people make mistakes. I've done a few things right as well. All of that will just go. It'll disappear. I'll grow tomatoes and play golf. And I wanted an opportunity, a platform, if you will, to be able to share this so that it didn't go to waste. 37 years thrown away just seems a lot, doesn't it, really? So I wanted to share that knowledge and experience, and this coaching consultancy platform that we have is my way to do that.
Awesome. And you've described there Flair, which of course is your consultancy business, as a consultancy and coaching business. In your view, what is the one difference between consultancy and coaching? Because those words are banded about, I think, far too freely.
Throw in mentoring as well, if you like.
That's right.
To make it even more complex.
Right.
Well, when I was a consultant, when I was in IT, my job was to look at something that didn't work, figure out a solution, then implement it, usually with the help of the people I was paid for. Right? That was my job as a consultant. You're consulting with me to find out how to unblock this obstacle, right? Coaching, they say, and there's lots of different definitions of it, is if I'm coaching you, you've already got all the answers in there. My job is to hold a mirror up and help you through and use my knowledge and experience to shape you in the direction. But it's you kind of doing it, really. So we are halfway between the two. There's not a word for what we do, really, because I'm very executive. I like to see, what do they say, the corporate snake killer. You see a snake and you kill it, right? You don't have a meeting about snakes and draw a white paper up about snakes. You fix it. And it's like that, really. If I see a problem, well, we should do this. Yeah. I've just been taken on as a chairman in a business, right? And it's an executive chairman. So I know, I've already looked at it. There's a whole bunch of things that need to be sorted out. So we'll have the plan and then I'll help them to implement it. I won't do all the work, like when I was freelance back in the day.
Yes.
In IT. Won't do the work, but I'll make sure it happens. With the coaching, it's about more of a development of the person.
Yes.
The consultancy, it's about getting a result, is the way I would sum it up, probably. And I like to do both.
Yeah, understand. And we'll perhaps circle back to that subject
sure.
a little later in the podcast, Mike. So, of course, you studied technology at degree level, business science to be
computer science in those days.
Absolutely. And of course, your early career wasn't in technology staffing. So question, how did you go from the degree that you studied to becoming a recruiter, before we talk a little bit about your first recruitment business?
Okay, well, they're all very close, really. I was a permanent programmer and analyst. Permanent, worked for companies like GEC and companies like that. And then my first son was born and my wife used to earn more than me and she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. We're in trouble.
That's right.
So contracting was the way forward. So I went to work for somebody who was a recruitment consultant, an agent.
Yes.
And he was just awesome. I mean, I use him a lot in my work and I use him as a paragon. It almost makes him sound saintly, and he wasn't. He had a dark side as well. But he was honest. Imagine this for a recruitment agency. He was honest. He did what he said he was going to do and he was bloody good at what he did. If he said, look at somebody, you looked at them because they were right for that job. I worked for him and then I was going to go and work in the States. I had a job in Reader's Digest in Westchester, upstate New York. And we couldn't get rid of the house, so the job fell through.
Okay.
And I was a bit of a low. And I was telling him this, and he said, well, why don't you come and work for me for it be a change? So here's the thing. I've got the numbers. I'll tell you the numbers, right, because I remember them. Now, my last year as freelance, £38,000 I grossed. This was in 1988. I took a job with him for £19,000, only 12 of which was salary. The other was guaranteed commission for 6 months. And after that, I was on my own, right? And then 6 months into that, we decided we'd do it for ourselves, formed our first business, and I took another pay drop to £1,000 a month. So that was a bit of a series of pay drops there. At one point, Mrs. Ames had to ring up the bank. No kidding. I want to cash a cheque to get some groceries. Is that okay? Well, how much do you want? £20? Make it 15. Okay, done. It was that bad because we remortgaged, increased our outgoings, and also we took a wage drop. So it was quite tough for a bit, but I had supreme confidence. Or was I just naive? You decide. I had supreme confidence and a bit of naivety to think that it would be okay. And it turned out that it was. But for a number of months, it was really, really bad, actually. It was really hard to do that. But, you know, if it don't kill you, it makes you stronger.
And what would you say was the thing that inspired you to set up your own business?
Well, that was
pushed you over the employment edge towards
that was Mike. That was my boss, the agent, and then my boss. And because he'd said, no, come and work with me. We'll have a great, we'd make some money in this, that, and the other. So I started in the October of 1988. And like everything I've ever done in my life, I'm not very academically clever. I'm not particularly astute. I just work hard. I don't give up. I just keep going and going and going. Threw hours at it. And even in that first 3 months, I started to bring in new clients of my own, right? Which I thought he should have been thrilled about. Just wasn't happy in his demeanour. So we went for a drink at Christmas. And I said, what's the problem? I can't work any harder. Oh, he said, it's not you. He said, there may be all sorts of promises here and they're not keeping any of them. I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, I'd like to set up on my own. I said, why would you do that then? So he was the trigger for it.
Right.
I've always said yes to every opportunity that's come my way on the basis that if it moves me forward, awesome. But if it doesn't move me forward, I can always go back or go sideways or try again. So it seemed to me, yes, there was another pay drop. I had to break that to Mrs. Ames very gradually. But it seemed to me that this was a much better way forward than working for someone else and taking that risk because I could win clients and so could he. So it seemed like the natural thing to do, really.
And when you both decided that Christmas to resign from your paid jobs to set up your own business. Did you have, Mike, a business plan? Had you spent a lot of time modeling what the business would look like, or was it more of a sort of leap of faith?
I think our misunderstanding of the word business plan was quite apparent about 3 months in, but we thought a business plan was effectively a spreadsheet with numbers on it,
Right.
which is part of a business
Of course
plan.
it is.
Okay, this is what we think we can do, and this is what it's going to cost us, and yada yada yada. So I had to go back contracting again to pay for this. We had another partner who was contracting as well, Andrew. So there were 3 of us piling money in, and Mike was sitting in an office. But what we should have had, the business plan that was missing, was an action plan. Right. So normally the structure is you have a mission, an internal mission. It's not for external. What do you want to achieve? Then you have a strategy. Then you have a business plan, and then you have a sprint, and you work one sprint after another. Right. That's how you get change. We didn't know any of that.
Right.
We just cracked on, really. And it was okay up until the following November, when Mike was killed in the car accident. So we'd been going for 19 months or something, 18 months, whatever. He was doing an errand for me because I was stuck on something and I couldn't finish it and I needed to. And he said, look, we're taking some papers to a contractor to sign. He said, I'll do it and I'll take him for lunch. I haven't seen him for ages, this contractor. And so he went and died in a car accident on the M42. There was a big pile up. 6 or 7 people died and the person that caused it was sent to prison for it. Didn't bring Mike back, of course. But and so then I was in charge. And you've got to understand that 18 months before, I'd been writing code for a living. I had no business experience. And I don't know whether you probably don't have this in your business. Other people do with you probably. Mike was the big guy, the big cheese.
Yeah, you looked up to him.
If there was a problem and Mike would sort it, right? Mike's the one with the ideas. Mike's the one with the contacts. So I'd got a little niche in the business, which I was comfortable with. I can do this. My job was to win new clients. I liked it. I can do that. Look after contractors. I can do that. Mike could do this, that and the other. Blown away because a chap had fallen asleep at the wheel in his lorry, right? In an instant, gone. So the next day I came in. I mean, it was horrendous. We'd got probably, I don't know, by then, 7 or 8 staff, I think. I don't know. Something like that. We all came in. I rang everybody up that night and they all came in. And I honestly, driving into work, I was crying driving into work because of him, but also rather selfishly because of me, because I didn't know what to do. I had no clue. Seriously, it's like, so I got in and everyone was great. Everyone was brilliant. My other partner, Andrew, came in and he was massively supportive. And the first decision I made, because I never really made any decisions, was to collect stamps for charity. Because I sat in Mike's desk, I did it on purpose to make a statement. My desk now. And Pamela, his PA now, my PA, put the post, used to get post in those days. Yeah, with envelopes and everything. And I said, right, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to save stamps for charity. That's what we're going to do. And weirdly, I know it's only a small thing, but it was almost a little turning point. I can make decisions.
Yes.
Not very big ones, I'll admit. But I can make decisions.
Start somewhere.
One does. And I think from that point onwards, that year was a lost year. It was horrendous. But if it don't kill you, as I said earlier, it makes you stronger.
Right.
And it didn't kill me. So I managed to come out of it okay. And the other thing is Mike's legacy for us, because he was so good at what he did and because he was so well liked, people gave us the benefit of the doubt until we found our feet.
Yes.
So the client stood with us, even though I didn't know what I was doing really. The contractors stood with us. And by the time that goodwill had sort of faded a little bit, I was pretty much up to speed. Not as good as Mike, but I was up to speed.
Sure. Got it. And devastating news, of course, to lose a friend, a mentor, a business partner at such a young age.
It's bad.
Obviously, you then, as you say, once you had recalibrated and found your feet 12 months in, you then started to scale the business. And at the height of the business, before you sold the business, where did you get to in terms of headcount or revenue, Mike, please?
Well, we had it was about 40 million quid turnover, which I suppose in today's money, that's about 60, 70 mil, I would imagine. We had 3 different business units. We had the recruitment, we had agency management, and we had a software house that developed software for people and maintained systems for people. And I guess it's about 86, 87 permanent staff and about 470 contractors somewhere that neck of the woods. So, but you see, whenever people talk to me about this, I couldn't do that now. One of the biggest factors in my success is when I was born. I was born in 1960. So I hit IT, did a degree in computer science with 2 grade E A-levels. That's all I got. 5 years later, I wouldn't have got anywhere near any kind of university or polytechnic with that. But it was the right time. The 80s was the IT. Everything exploded. Contracting went through the roof. We made money, saved some, thank God, to get us through those lean times. The 90s was brilliant for contract recruitment. No IR35. No TAs kicking around. If you wanted to build a relationship with a hiring manager, you could. You could ring them up and they would answer the phone because it was landlines. They would answer the phone, you would speak to them because other people rang them. It was just the best time ever. Money was cheap. There was a lot of business. There was no outsourcing to India or anything like that. It was the golden period for contracting, I think. And it's become harder and harder ever since. So people say, oh, and I see people on podcasts like this saying, oh, implication, I could do it again. You couldn't. It's not the same now. It's different. You'd need to cut your cloth differently in this market than you did in the old days. Having said that, there are some inalienable truths that never change. Number one, obsession with excellence. That is the number one secret to success. If you look at any brand anywhere, the thing that's made it successful consistently is quality, is excellence. So I think sometimes in recruitment, I know this podcast goes out to lots of people, not just recruiters, but in anything you do, the delivery, the thing you get paid for, not only does it have to be excellent, it has to be continually getting better. You can't stand still. And I think that's the mistake a lot of people make. Let's focus on sales and marketing. Let's get this brand sorted out. Yeah, fair enough. Then, all that's going to do is get you a crack. If what they taste is not what they expected or it's not as good as they thought it was going to be, you don't get any more. Start with delivery, the thing you make your money on, and build out from there. And I learned that from Mike. He was obsessed with excellence. Have I got time for a little story?
Absolutely.
Okay, right. So early on, we're in our little office in Shirley in South Birmingham. The office is about as big as this table. It's tiny. We're sitting there and we're doing a big proposal. I can't even remember what it was for. Big proposal. So we had a Daisy printer that took about 3 weeks to print, took 2 pages. And we had one of those binders. Do you remember the old days? You get like a plastic sheet, you put the papers in and it's got glue in the bottom.
Oh, yes.
And you put it into a heater
Indeed,
thing,
yes.
melts the glue and take it out. So we got that right. Anyway, we're doing all of this and we promised ourselves we'd go down the Saracen's Edge for a pint afterwards. So I'm just packing up. I've downloaded the computer, turned everything off, and he said, oh no. So what's the problem? He said, we spelt there wrong. Now, I can't remember which way around it was, but we'd spelt it wrong. It was T-H-E-R-E or T-H-E-R, whatever, I don't know. But it wasn't the right one. Like, really? Like, who cares? Nope. So we couldn't reuse any of the papers because it was all glued together. So print them all off, change it, print them all off, all over again. We didn't get to the pub that night, but that was him. His obsession with quality. And I think that's something I inherited. I inherited many things from him, but that was one of them because I know if your product or service is excellent and continually getting better, it has a roadmap, you will be successful.
How do you think you can encourage / teach someone to be obsessed over delivering high quality output? And by that I mean, we'll have worked with many of people, Mike, over the years who are willing to do the very least to succeed. They don't want to break a sweat. They're in third gear. How do you get someone like that to appreciate you do have to stress the small detail?
3 things I would say in answer to that question, which is a good question, by the way. It's a question of all this podcast. I don't know what else we're going to talk about. This is the bit you should take notice of, boys and girls, because it's about this, not necessarily my words of wisdom, but the excellence part, right? The very first thing I would say is that the only measurement of quality that really counts is your clients. So you can have as many internal numbers as you like that tell you whether you're very good or bad at doing something, but they really measure efficiency. They don't measure quality, right? So those metrics are important because you need to be efficient, but what matters most is what the clients think. Now, most client feedback that you get is designed for you to say, oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah, testimonials. It's about sort of
59,
positively endorsing, isn't it?
88% of people gave us 5 stars or whatever.
Exactly.
Right? Well, fine. Great for the marketers.
That's right.
But in terms of your excellence, it's no use at all. There's a thing called VOTC. It's called Voice of the Customer. It's a very specific way that I came across in Australia. Very specific way of gathering feedback from clients. And we could spend the rest of the podcast on it, so we won't. I know there's other things you want to talk about. But essentially, you're not only giving your clients permission to criticize you, you're actively encouraging and rewarding it. It's done in a very structured way. There's 2 levels. So you can have a form that goes out, but you're only going to get about 5 to 10% of responses. And most of the people that respond like you. So they'll say nice things, you get a distorted view. But what it does do, it sends a message out that we're interested and serious about quality.
Totally.
So I would always do that, but I wouldn't rely upon that. What matters is you ring people up. Now, we always get the same when we do it. So we do this for our clients. It's not a service that we sell. It's only for our clients if they want us to. And we only want to do it until they can do it themselves. We don't really want to get stuck with this. But they would say, well, I don't think it's 45 minutes. I don't think one of our clients will give you 45 minutes. Not true. Not true. When they understand what it is, half of them, you can't shut them up. I had one, she was a chairman of a very large company. She was very posh. She swore like a trooper in this very posh voice. I couldn't believe it. There was no holds barred on the swearing. An hour and 45 minutes. I had to get rid of her in the end because I got a meeting in 50. I had to get rid of her. And she was like, oh, I got this other thing. I must tell you this that they do. Right? Once you give them the voice, the platform, then you start to get the feedback. And it's that feedback that makes you excellent. That's the feedback. Changing if your conversion ratios in LinkedIn or, in recruitment, if your conversion ratio, CVs to interviews to offers, that's not very good. You can change that, makes you more efficient. Doesn't increase your quality. Quality is changing the way in which your clients perceive you. VOTC is the number one thing that I would suggest people do. Get a voice from your clients. Give them an opportunity to criticize you and reward them for it. Now, if people are out there thinking who should do this, the best person is the marketing department, because there's a structure to this VOTC. You don't just ring up and say, hey, how good are we? No, you won't get anything that way. There is a structure you need to follow. But one of the things that you can also ask at the same time is, what are people interested in right now? You know, what's worrying you? What are you thinking about the future? What are you interested in? Which then gives the marketer something to go away and produce content for. Because marketers don't get a chance normally to actually talk to end clients.
Yes.
Everything that they do comes through client-facing people. Not good. This gives them a direct access, so it's a double whammy. If you haven't got a marketer, just get someone in the organization who's not connected with the client.
They're independent from the client
Completely.
relationship.
It's like, well, like one of the rules of the OTC is you never explain away.
Yes.
Right? You tell me this. Okay, yeah. I'm going to explore. I want to understand it. But I'm not going to push back and I'm not going to explain away. That's part of the rules. There's other rules as well. But that independence only comes if you're not involved with it. Because if they say something that you know is wrong, your temptation, oh no.
That's right.
Let me put you right on that.
That's right.
No. What you're saying there is wrong. End of. That's it. That's closed down. You finish then. So VOTC is probably the most important thing. I think the other thing is continual training. Right. My father was in the army and he said, he was in combat and he said, he couldn't understand when they were on the parade ground drilling and all the things that they did every day, what relevance that was. Why? What difference does it make? Until he was in combat, then he knew. Then he knew, because you don't think, you just do what's right, right? And I think it's really important to continually not train so much. Training, there was a study by the University of Middlesex that said in some cases only 4% of what you transfer in terms of knowledge, training process, a course or something, is retained. 96%, up to 96%, disappears in the ether and people go back to their old ways. So what we're talking about is repetition.
Yes. Well, we're all creatures of habit.
We are.
The problem is when you attend a training course, it's all very interesting, all very engaging. You go back to business and you revert to type.
Quite so.
And you're not putting into practice what you've learned.
So what you need is what they call laser or pinpoint coaching. So I'm going to train with just this one thing, right? And then you're going to go and do it, come back and tell me what you've done. And we're going to role play it until it's done.
Yes, right.
Then we move on to the next thing. So it takes a lot longer. Training departments in bigger businesses hate it because they like a spreadsheet that says, oh, I'll put Carl through the so-and-so training so he knows all that now. But you might know it. Are you doing it?
That's right.
That's what we're interested in. So I think that drilling is the best word I can use, which is a combination of coaching and training and repetition and role play and all that stuff. But it's a drill. And I think the third thing is, and process is part of that. You've got a processes to go against, to train people in. And the third thing is tools. Tools are perhaps the most important part, certainly in recruitment, but I would argue in business in general. Because what a tool does is amplify the ability of the person that uses it.
Yeah.
Whether that's in the kitchen, the workshop, or the office, it doesn't make any difference. Have you said, quick story if you've got time, very quick, the Steve Jobs story about the American Scientific magazine?
Oh, no, tell me more.
Okay. So when he was a young boy, he was interested in science, I think. So he used to get the American Scientific magazine. And someone had done a study of how many calories it took different animals to travel a kilometre, right? From a slug all the way up to whatever. Obviously, they didn't measure a slug for the kilometre. They measured and multiplied it up. And at the top of the table was a condor. It was massively efficient. Right, minimal calories to go a kilometre. Human beings were like a third of the way down. And then someone had the presence of mind to test a human on a bicycle, a tool, blew the condor away. The tool amplified the skills and ability of the person using it. So just like any kind of training, the problem with tools is people don't use them, whether it's software. When I was at university, it was estimated that people used 90% of the software that we produced for them. Now it can be as low as 5% for certain types of software. You think that's crazy? How much of Excel do you use? Yeah. Well, you probably use quite a bit because you're...
Not much though. The functionalities are so significant and most people don't really know how to use Microsoft Suite.
But you paid for it.
Yeah, right.
You own it.
That's right.
You look at your phone, right? You just turned it off a few seconds ago. How many apps have you got on there that you don't use, right? So I don't think, it's probably closer to 20% normally, but it can be as low in some things. So you must make sure that they use the functionality. I urge everybody, take time out to make sure that everybody uses the software that you've already paid for. You own it, no more money. Make sure they use it properly and fully because it will amplify their ability. Now, the interesting thing is if you want a high profit business, which is what we're all about, profit is the key to everything. One of the ways, profit and productivity go hand in hand. You get productivity before profit. One of the ways that you can do that is to take an average team, because average people don't tend to come and go as much as talented people. An average team, make them stable so they stay together, equip them with the right tools and processes, look after them. They will generate more profits than a volatile team of top billers or high performers coming and going. 100%. And it's the tools that make the difference. Yeah, processes are a tool because all tools simplify, standardize, and speed up whatever they are approached towards. So a process does that. So a process is a kind of a tool in a way. But you must make sure that they use them and monitor this all the time because people, as you say, are creatures of habit and they'll drift out of things. So you've got to be on it all the time. It's called active management is the term. And you've got to actively manage to make sure everybody's doing what they should be doing. If you bring those three things together, you've automatically got a business that's focused on quality. Not because you've said, you need to be excellent. No. It's just built in. That you have to be. Because if you're not, it's obvious. And if we can't fix it, I'm afraid you may be probably better off somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, you've said a lot in there. And of course, it all comes down to the ability to scale, doesn't it? Because you need tools, systems, processes, procedures if you are to scale a large business, which doesn't rely on too few high-performing individuals, as you say. So back to your first business, Mike. Obviously, sadly, you lost your business partner. You had to then assume the role of CEO. How long did it take you from that point to when you sold your first business, please?
But funnily enough, you can divide it up into very succinct, right? So there was the first 18 months with Mike, just finding our way. Mike died, and after a year, I took a coach, Anne-Marie Hanlon, her name was, changed everything. So that period, 2 years she worked with us, that period was transformative. everything. She changed the way in which I thought, which was the most important thing. I cannot tell you the things she used to say to me about, she used to say, well, you're a recruiter that owns a business and you should be a business owner that does recruitment. I couldn't see the difference.
Okay.
Massive difference.
So she was a mindset coach.
Everything though,
she was,
but she was practical.
Right.
She was a coach consultant.
Okay.
Again.
Got it.
So she did practical things like we'd never done marketing, and she originally had been a marketer. So she helped us with that, but she helped me learn to delegate because I didn't know how to delegate properly. She taught me about teams and people and scalability, a whole bunch of stuff, right? It was brilliant. So we went from 0 to 5 years in the first 5 years. The end of those, the last 2 of those 5 years, we had Anne-Marie. The next 5 years, we went from 5 million to 40 million. So the graph went like that. It's because of her. That's what happened.
And would you say that is the single reason why you were able to scale as
Yes.
fast as you did in that second 5
It was
years?
the biggest contributory reason is what it was. There were other things as well. We were very lucky to have some very good people. The market was great. There's other things as well. But she was the catalyst. And the 2 things that she did above all else, she taught us about, it wasn't called this then, but she taught us about strategic BD. Because up until that point, BD for us had been hunting vacancies. And she said, no, go for clients because the vacancies will come. Get the high value clients, the vacancies will come from them. And the other thing was Apex client care. I thought client care and account management were the same thing. How wrong was I? So she taught us about client care and what that really meant, how people feel about you, not what you do for them. Client care is best described, I think, as what you do when there's no work.
Yes.
How you interact with someone when there's no work. So she taught us that. And it was those 2 things predominantly, I think, where 80% of the growth that followed came from strategic BD and Apex client care.
When you were looking for a coach, did you know what gaps you were looking to infill? Or actually, did you not know what you didn't?
There is another little story, if you don't mind.
Please.
Okay. Right. So what happened was, so I'm quite shy, and I know, and an introvert, weirdly. This is what you see now has been beaten into me over years. So I was that with Mike in charge. It was all going well. He goes, I then try and be somebody else. I try and be Mr. Billy Big, the big I am, because I thought that I couldn't have someone out, our competitors or our staff looking at us thinking Mike Ames hasn't got a clue what he's doing. So it's like, yeah, I know everything. Yeah, we'll do this. And I went from not being able to making decisions to making all the decisions. Right, I was at the center of all of this. Went to my head, as you would imagine it would. And then what happens is when you've got, and Anne-Marie said, you built a business around you. What you should have built is a business that doesn't need you. Right, so this business I was integral to it. Great when you're small, massively efficient. But if you want to grow, no good, right? So I reached a point and 3 things happened at once within the space of a couple of 3 weeks. Can't remember the exact timings. First thing that happened was Andrew said to me, he said, I think we're going to flatline this year. It's like, well, that's not very good. I mean, I can't work any harder than this. Right? I'm doing 1 week, I did an 88-hour week, including the weekend, obviously. I didn't do it Monday through Friday, but it was a long week. Well, I can't do any more, right? The second thing that happened was, have you ever had that situation on a Friday night? You've had a great ups and downs in the week, buzzing, some real highs and some lows that you've dealt with, right? So I'm driving home on a Friday night. It's about, I don't know, 7:30 or something. And I lived about an hour away, driving home, and I'm buzzing. And my wife, as I came through, I could see that the bedroom light wasn't on where the boys slept. So they were still up. She'd kept them up because I hadn't seen them all week. The last thing I wanted to see was 2 children leaping over me. What I wanted was a bucket of wine and some trashy TV. That's what I wanted, right? So do you know what I did? I parked up. And waited for the light to come on, waited another 10 minutes and then went in. Well, they were still awake because she'd obviously got them excited about seeing me. So they came dashing downstairs, Dad, Dad, Dad. So I went up, read them a story, came downstairs, broke down. Just the floodgates opened. I completely lost it, man. It was not good. I felt as though all the success that we'd had, everything was for no points. And my wife said, look, you're going to fix this, Michael, or I am. And I knew what she meant by that, right? So I can't remember that weekend. And then I went in on Monday, and this is the third of the 3 things. Synchronicity. And my business partner, Andrew, was waving this piece of paper as I came through the door in front of me. And it was a marketing, I think it was a marketing and growth or growth and marketing seminar run by the DTI, the old, what I don't know what it's called now, Department of Trade and Industry at Warwick University. And I said, yeah, let's go. He said years afterwards, that's the only time I've ever surprised him in business, because I'm Mr. Billy Big, I know everything. I'm going to go and learn some stuff, right? I was desperate to go. In the end, he couldn't go, so I went on my own. And there's this bloke, his name's Don Black, and he's standing at the front and he's talking about a business and a business owner. And he's describing me, my world. He's talking about commercial loneliness, feeling like you're on your own. He's talking about the hours that you put in, the stress, feeling that everything comes back to you, the way in which you feel. He's talking about me, and it's like, well, you're not organised properly. He didn't use the word scalable because people didn't.
Sure.
But the message was, you're not scalable, you need to change, right? Because this will not scale. This will go backwards and you'll have some kind of nervous breakdown. Tell me about it, right? Yeah, I'm up for that. And I was the first at the front, because what they were doing was trying to ship coaches. The DTI were paying half the fee.
Right.
And you had to pay the other half. That was the point of it. I was the first at the front. I said, I'm in. Who do I need to see? And that's where we got Anne-Marie. I didn't care what she did. Just do something. Just help me.
Yeah, so all you knew was that something wasn't right, but you didn't know what problems needed solving.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it reached a stage where I didn't, Carl, I just felt bereft. We'd had success. The business had grown. Obviously, to stop growing, right? But I felt I couldn't do this on my own. And years later, I read a quote by J.C. Penney, the American, he's a grocer, isn't he? I think, whatever, retailer. And he said, the most seminal moment in my business career came when I realized I couldn't do it all myself. Yeah. And it's not about, I've got loads of people in the business by then. I have probably 15 people, 20 people. I don't know how many we've got. It wasn't that. I needed somebody in the circle with me. Andrew was great, but he was not a salesman. He was a back office guy, numbers guy, very reliable, never had to worry about any of that. Couldn't have done it without him, 100%. He deserved the same from me as the sale. He got it. He earned every single penny. But I had nobody to talk to about the commercial sides of the business. I was alone. Commercial loneliness is the phrase, isn't it? And so, to me, to have somebody who said, no, relax. Map of the maze. I've got the map of the maze, Michael. Got the map of the maze. Right, still going to make a few mistakes, but a lot less. Because you get, I don't know, you're familiar, you're in business. The concept of attractive cul-de-sacs means you make a decision based on the data that you've got.
That's right.
Only when you've made that decision and gone forward, you realise it's a dead end. You've got to come back out again. And the other one is bear traps. You're walking along, whoop, you fall into something you don't see. Well, she was helping me to avoid more of the attractive cul-de-sacs, which are costly and expensive, and the bear traps, which again are expensive and unpleasant, quite frankly. She helped me steer around those. And that, again, was really important. I think contribution is the wrong word, because it was seminal. You know, it plays it down when I say contribution, because she did so much more than that.
You mentioned that after that 88-hour week, you pulled in a cul-de-sac and waited for your kids to go to sleep before you went home.
I'm not proud of that, by the way.
No, well, I appreciate the honesty. Just give me an insight into the sacrifice you felt you were making then, and why actually you couldn't go home after a long week to see your kids. What was it that made you feel not able to go home that Friday evening?
It was just...
I think a lot of entrepreneurs will probably have felt something similar.
Overwhelm and overheat. You know, that much of the 90s I don't remember, but I enjoyed it mostly. Obviously some bits I didn't, but mostly I did. I don't remember it because it was the emotion that I liked, not the fact that I did this. Like this, for example, coming here with you today is what we call in the trade a memory day. I'll remember this. I won't remember what I do tomorrow probably, because it's some stuff with some clients. Sure. So your job is to do as many memory days as you can with your family. So there's a definition for it and everything, but essentially doing stuff that they want to do, preferably away from home, and it's something that you remember. I didn't have any memory days from the 90s, right? I enjoyed it very much. So to answer your question, to come back to your point, I was full of adrenaline and I needed to come down. I tell you what it must be like, and my wife said this actually years later. She said, because we talked about this a lot, she said, imagine what it's to be like to be a pop star, to go on stage and perform to 10,000 people and then come off stage and you're just an ordinary Joe.
It's an anticlimax.
Massively so.
Yep.
I'm not a rock star. I don't perform to 10,000
I've heard
people.
you sing, Mike. You are certainly not a rock star.
You say that, but anyway, okay, fair enough.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. When I sing, karaoke. No one said. Anyway, but it's from being in a place where there's excitement and adrenaline. Mm-hmm. It's intoxicating, isn't it?
It is. It's a drug.
It's a drug.
Addictive.
It creates cortisol for sure, but dopamine in gallons gone. So I've got to go back, and the kids are going to mess over me, and I am tired and drained and stressed and all the rest of it. So the trick is not to get into that position. And that's the thing I learned, is that if you make the wrong decisions, you end up with a business that depends upon you and needs you and is built around you. That's not right. And if you're a bigger business, you're probably not in that space anymore. You probably moved away from that. Although I did some work with a contract agency, about 20 odd million quid turnover. And the guy that ran it, quite a big company, the guy that ran it, still ran it like a recruiter. His mentality, he was a recruiter that ran a business, not a business person that did recruitment. So I think it doesn't really matter about size, some people do. But when you're developing your team, as the business transitions, they have to see this as well. They have to see that the team is the thing that generates the results. You are the facilitator. You know, have you come across the concept of business superpower?
Yes.
Right. That's the deal, right? So you train people to understand what their business superpower is. For those that don't know, it's something that you're good at, something you enjoy, and something that has a big impact on the business. Probably something that you've learned. So it's not the skill you were born with. Through experience and trial and error, you built this ability. You should do mostly that in your business, and they don't get bogged down with all sorts of stuff. So your job is to remove anything that's not your business superpower over time.
So obviously Modus approached your business.
They did.
Why was it at the time of that approach you and your shareholders might decided fundamentally to sell the business?
Well, we approached them because what happened was we went out, Andrew and I went out every Christmas. I don't drink now, but in those days, I drank.
Why don't you drink now?
Health, really, more than anything else. And also, I know this is going to sound dead prudish, really. I can't even believe I'm going to say it, but you don't need it. You don't need it. It's not necessary. I can have a good time at an insurance convention. I don't need to drink. Anyway, so... But
sorry to interrupt you though, Mike, because it's an interesting topic. If you look back over your career, would you say alcohol has been additive or dilutive overall?
Additive to the business, positive to the business, negative to me. That's what I would say. I think young men, I saw Scott Galloway say this recently, I think young men now should go out and have a drink. They don't. Because, I don't drink, all this sort of business, and which is fine. I do, so it's okay. But you just finish work and go home or work in your back bedroom. Some of the best ideas that we've ever had, some of the camaraderie that we built that then spilled over into the workplace was established down the pub. The White Swan, which was right next door to us, we didn't have meeting rooms, so you used to go to the White Swan to have our meetings. And if you're there, well,
that's right, why not?
Have a cheeky pint as well while you're at it, or 8. And the number of times we didn't go back in the afternoons, Anyway, but we'd been drinking, and so neither Andrew and I can remember who said this, but someone said, I've had enough.
Yes.
And the other one said, well, thank God you said that, because I have too. So when we sobered up in January, I remember it was me that said this to Andrew, do you think we should have a look around? And in those days, we didn't know you, Carl.
That's right.
In those days, we didn't know you. So I won't mention the name of the companies, but with Mike's death, his widow had hired one of the big 4 to do a forensic accounting for the insurance claim. So we knew people there because we had a lot to do with them. The claim was about 4 years in it. So we knew people there. And then we'd won, there was a thing called, we were the 27th fastest growing private company in the United Kingdom in 1994 or something. And that was a thing called the Independent, the newspaper, with another one of the big 4, ran this prize.
Right.
So I knew people at that other firm.
Understand.
So we approached them as well. So we went through the process, and we went with The first
So
company.
you engaged a corporate finance
Corporate
advisory
finance
firm
business,
to
we did.
take your business to
Yeah,
market.
we did. So then they did what you did for us, except they were allowed to do the full job, which you unfortunately couldn't, with the restrictions put on you in the second sale. But they then produced the memorandum of sale and went to market and yada, yada, yada. And they found a South African company, I think its name was Dimension Data, Didata, yeah. And they were dead keen and they were in. And then I was on holiday and I got a call from Mark Asplin, and he said, "Oh, when are you coming back from holiday, Mike?" I said, "Oh, I just got here. I'm here for another 2 weeks. What can do with you here?" So what's the problem? I use over the phone. He said, "No, there's some Americans turned up. They're in London and they really want to see you." I said, "Well, can't they deal with Andrew?" "No, they want to see you." Right. So, oh God. So I said, "Well, I just got here, and of course I needed a holiday, right? It was a stressful time in my life." And he said, "I'll have a word with them then." So they extended their stay. We were only there for a week, I think. They extended their stay until I came back, and we met them. And that was Akistaff that then turned into Modis. And they just bowled the competition. They just pushed them aside.
In terms of valuation?
Everything, yeah, and the speed they wanted to do things and their vision for it, they just straight in there. I mean, several £1 million more and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So it's like, oh, wow. So, and years later, not years later, months later, in the January, so we sold in the November, took 11 months for the sale to go through. We sold in November. In the January, we were up for an award. In those days, we used to enter awards. Anyway, not a big fan of awards really, but we'd gone in for this. So it was in London. So I said to my boss, who's in New York, I said, "When are you coming across?" He said, "Well, look, we got this awards dinner. Why don't you come across? I don't know whether we'll win, but come across anyway." I said, yeah. We didn't win. Embarrassing, Anyway, we were out, we were having drinks afterwards. And I said, "Larry, there's a lot of companies in the UK, you really went for us. Why did you do that? Why?" And he said some very complimentary things. But he said, "You were a process over people company," which I was a little offended by because I took it in the wrong way and I shouldn't have done. What he meant was we've got strong processes and good people.
That's right.
Not instead of.
Back to what we talked about before.
Quite so, right? He said, "You've got a really good portfolio of clients." And what they offered, because we offered agency management in the mid-90s, what they call MSP now, whatever, recruitment process and outsourcing. No one did that in the UK. Well, there are a couple of people in London, but we went big on it. And nobody did that. And they were attracted by it because it was done in the States and they wanted a UK company that did that. And we had one. We were pushing 800 or 900 contractors through it in less than a year. And he really liked the look of that. And I think it was a combination of all of them. But it was interesting that obviously we made a lot of money as well, significant amounts of money for the size business we were.
How much did you sell the business for?
24 mil headline price.
And you were what shareholder at that time in terms of percentage?
Just over a third. Well, it was a third. And then we bought some shares back off Mike's widow.
Right.
I mean, we employed her. We paid Mike's salary for ages. Then she came on board and we paid her effectively Mike's salary. And then she wanted to leave. So then we bought some shares off her. We didn't do, we paid the
fair
price.
Value, indeed.
We did.
Indeed.
We had it valued and did it properly. And our pension schemes bought those shares.
Right.
So, I don't know, maybe 40% each. I don't know.
And how old were you, Mike, when you sold the business?
38.
38. So 2 questions on that. Obviously sold the business and you went from being the big boss to someone who was reporting to a big boss. How did that land with you?
Well, how do you think? No, I tell you, no, that's not fair, to be fair. The people I sold to, 2 Americans from New York, had sold their business to Akistaff, Modis. Got on with them okay. Less than a year in, they both left. And I had a new boss who didn't see the world like they did, like I did. So that changed the dynamics.
Totally.
Plus, the market crashed. So we got full earnout on the first one.
Oh.
We got just over half, maybe 60, 70% on the second one. But I didn't think we were going to get any earnout on the third.
Okay.
Market had just fallen through the floor. Post year 2K,
Yep.
No one was spending money on IT. So at that point, it's like, I think I should leave. And they're like, yeah, we think you should leave. So I left 2 years in and then realized, because my business partner, Andrew, stayed for less. He'd gone in 3 months because they had a back office. And I was very unhappy and I'd go and see him And he'd be saying, oh, he bought Colin McRae, you know, the rally drivers, bought his house in Spain, and he got a little farm with some sheep on it and horses. I don't even like countryside. I don't like sheep, and I certainly like, but I envied him this life. I wanted that life. I wanted the life of Bertie Wooster. If you don't know who Bertie Wooster is, Google it. I wanted that life until I got it.
Yes. Be careful what you wish for.
Be careful what you wish for, my old friend, because damn. And the problem with that was that I'd never been more wealthy in my entire life, and I was becoming more and more depressed. I had to have a counsellor in the end. I was so bad. I couldn't do more than one thing a day. So if you'd rung me up and said, Mike, do you want to play golf on Tuesday? Oh, I can't because I'm having my haircut. I couldn't do two things in a day. Can we have coffee? What day? And I'm going to the library that day. So, and I was depressed. I watched a lot of Star Wars movies. It was dreadful. And so I had this counsellor who spent some time with me, and she didn't say this. I'm paraphrasing, right? But she didn't say this, but this is what she said. The message was, Michael, get a job. You'll be fine. We're done here. Right? That was pretty much what she said. So that's when we started Crimson. The business that you sold for us was at that point because I needed a job.
And for any entrepreneur watching this podcast who has not sold a business before, but perhaps Mike is building a business with an event in mind, just try and give them an insight into how it feels once you've sold your business and you get X millions of pounds drop in your current account, because a lot of people think that is utopia, but as you've just described, be careful what you wish for. So could we just talk about that?
I think you read about a lot of lottery winners, don't you? Who get money and then
don't hold it for long, it seems.
Break their marriages up, they become, all this sort of stuff. And the problem with most of those people, please take this the right way, they're mostly poor people when they get it. So there's a massive difference between their life and the new life. Most of the people who are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast will be wealthy. So they can afford as many holidays, they can afford a new car, and they're paying their mortgage off at a rate. If you said to them, can you find 200 grand? They'd say, no, I can't. But they can have a wealthy lifestyle.
Yes.
So the money doesn't make a lot of difference for that. We were a bit silly. We bought new cars. We did the house up, whatever, but we could have done that anyway, probably. So it didn't change my life. I'm not a material person. I don't spend a lot of money. I don't, look at me, I'm not a clothes source, for God's sake. Look at you. Fantastic and everything. Me, not so much, poxy little watch that I've got here. I'm not interested in material things, really. So it didn't. We had too many holidays the first year, and we were in the airport in the October of that year, and the children said, they've been talking to each other, we don't want to go on holiday. We want to stay here. Too late now, we're in the airport, but we don't want to go any more holidays next year, because we didn't know what else to do, really. It was a mistake, as it turned out. But the point is that it doesn't change anything if you've been wealthy, if you've had that money to make your life what it is. It doesn't really change anything unless you're the kind of person that wants to flash the cash, in which case, yeah, it probably will. But I didn't buy, I had a nice car anyway. I didn't buy another one for ages, but it didn't make any difference to me. I know some people it does, but not me.
Sure. And you mentioned that, you were receiving some counselling, and effectively the recommendation was perhaps you need to be engaged again, you need purpose. And of course, that's when you set up Crimson. And whilst there's a lot we could talk about with Crimson, sadly today we will not have time on this podcast. So let me ask one question. From when you set up Crimson to when I advised you and your shareholders on sale of Crimson to Harvey Nash PLC, what is the one thing you took into that business that you learnt from your first business? The one thing.
Focus. Yeah. Many entrepreneurs are like magpies. They see a shiny thing. Oh, we'll do that now. I understand the purpose of that. I get it. There could be an opportunity. But the thing that was told to me that I always remember is when entrepreneurs see an opportunity, they ask themselves one question: can I do this? It's the wrong question. Other wiser entrepreneurs say, I can do this.
Yeah, should I
do this?
That's right.
But the wisest of all, I can do this. I should do this. Should I do it now? The answer is no. You can do it. You should do it. Not now, because you haven't finished this or you haven't finished that. It's incredibly important to focus. Did we focus the whole time? No, of course not. But I knew that. We all knew that. And we tried our best to avoid the shiny sort of magpie syndrome where you just get pulled from pillar to post. It's very important. The more you focus on something, the more successful you'll be. one quick story. I know we got to finish then, but it's a focus story. So, Bill Gates was friendly with Warren Buffett, very friendly, because, the reason for that was Bill's dad knew Warren Buffett. So they're out having lunch, and Bill's dad says, it's amazing. I'm sitting there having lunch with the two richest men on the planet. Well, what do you know? I say, so tell you what, write on your napkin the one word that you think has been the root of your success. So Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, show it at the same time. It's the word focus.
Wow.
Focus, focus, focus. And if you get a chance, right, peeps, if you get a chance, Google Johnny Ives, Steve Jobs, focus. It's 91 seconds, change your world. It's a brilliant, I watch it every month.
Wow.
Because he talks about focus and the way in which Steve Jobs saw focus and what impact it had on Johnny Ive, who obviously designed all of the iPads and things that we use. So focus.
It's interesting because, of course, you could go into a lot more detail there, i.e. marginal gains, compounding. Point is, if you just focus and keep doing that same thing consistently, but marginally better, that's what great looks like, right?
I'm a big fan of marginal gains. That's what VOTC gives you.
Yeah,
right. All of that, VOTE, voice of the employee, all the same stuff. But if you are spread too thin, all of that good work just runs out of power.
Totally.
You don't get it past the line. Focus. Do it until you can't do it anymore, and then do something else.
Yes. You talked earlier about the time whereby you were working too hard, arguably. You felt alone. You didn't have anyone inside the tent to share the burden, the excitement, the frustration with. And you talked about not having enough time with family. Any regrets when it comes to the amount of time you've spent in business versus not?
Massively. Massively. I'd give the fortune away to have those years again. Massively. So much so that rather pathetically, I put much more effort into my grandchildren than my wife does. She said, I bought the children. I'm going to do it all over again. And she's a good grandma, by the way. But my lad says, can you pick the kids up? Yep, I'll cancel meetings to go and pick the kids up. I'll do that. Give the kids overnight. Yeah, I can do that. I'll change things to make these things happen and have a relationship with those children, because you think you're getting away with it. On holiday, when you take a sneaky call, you think you're getting away with it. You're not. They know you're physically there, but mentally somewhere else, and they don't like it. So don't be that guy. When you work, be at work, but when you're not, you're not. And that's the bottom line. And I think in the modern age with mobile phones and laptops and things and the internet, you can be at work anywhere on the planet. God knows what state I'd have been if we had mobile phones and laptops and the internet in my day. Because I'd have been all over the place. It was bad enough with my little mobile phone with a what's it. But I think, yes, 100% I would change that.
So to any entrepreneur, Mike, watching this podcast, who might say, well, Mike, it's easier said than done. I'm running my own business. All roads lead to me. My business is fast paced and we're scaling quick. I can't disappear for 2 weeks and switch off.
Okay.
And of course they could say it's easy for you to say that, having sold two businesses of tens of millions. So what's your advice to that?
After 7 years, it didn't matter I went to work or not with the first business. And in the second business, it didn't matter at all from day one whether I was there. So I don't buy that. There's the 3-4-8 rule. Have you heard of the 3-4-8 rule in business? Right. So it takes 3 years to establish a viable business. Making money, got people, doing all right, right? Takes another 4 years after that, 7 years now, to turn that into a high profit business that's stable, safe, and doesn't need you all the time. And then another 8 years on top of that to make enough money to retire without selling if you can sell. Brilliant, right? That first 3 years, it doesn't matter what hours you work. Go for it. Go for it. Get permission from your husband or your wife or your partner and say, I need to do this. But don't waste it where it's 3 years where each year is the same. You've got to get to the stage. It's about hiring people, putting the processes and the tools in place, then putting a management structure in place. And then that second 4 years is about producing a highly profitable team, massively profitable, and keeping that profitability, because we all know, the scissor companies, turnover goes up, profit goes down as it grows. Particularly prevalent for service businesses, happens all the time. Right, the way to avoid that is to focus in on certain metrics that will keep your business focused on profits. And at the end of it, if you've got the right people and the right processes and the right metrics and management structure in place, You don't need to go in every day. You're then focused on your business superpower, and pound to a penny, that business superpower is in the world of value, not in the world of time. It's fine. People, if you're working too hard for too long, you're not doing something right. You are not organized properly. You're not letting enough go. You haven't got the right people. You're not developing those people in the way that you need to. And don't blame anybody else. And don't say, oh, well, look, I've got to do this, because you don't. You do not have to do that. You're making a big mistake.
Mike, last question. If any entrepreneur watching this podcast is desperately trying to find the fine line between running a great business and having a life and spending time with their young kids, what is the one thing that you can encourage them to do that perhaps you wish someone had told you to do?
Okay, I'm going with 2 because I've got to. Hire well, learn to delegate.
Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on my Confessions of an Entrepreneur podcast. Huge thanks.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It's been an absolute pleasure today to have Mike Ames on my Confessions of an Entrepreneur podcast. It was fascinating to hear a little bit more about Mike's journey from starting up, scaling up and selling his first business to Modus, along with some of the challenges he faced on the journey, including losing, tragically, his business partner, which of course forced Mike to stand up, be countered and take the CEO seat. Interestingly, whilst at the time it would have been nothing short of devastating, I suspect being dropped in at the deep end certainly forces one to have to learn to swim fast. Of course, some of the learnings that Mike enjoyed from scaling his first business, he put to work when he set up Crimson, his second business. And the thing that for sure he said was paramount in business number 2 was focus, focus, focus. Of course, the thing that definitely I can totally relate to there is the benefit of compounding and in turn marginal gains, i.e. keep doing the same things you've always done slightly better, and of course the output can be significantly different. Mike talked a little bit about the anticlimax of selling a business, accepting, hey, once you've got many zeros in the bank, do more zeros really matter? And of course, really what I took from that part of the podcast was purpose. We all need purpose, whether it be in business or outside of business. It was really humbling, actually, to hear a bit more about Mike's frustrations when it came to work-life balance. And he was very honest in talking about the fact that perhaps when his kids were young, he didn't spend the time he should have, or on reflection, would like to have spent with them. But hey, I think that's something we all perhaps have a daily struggle with as we are building our businesses, digging deep, but wanting to spend time with our partners and family. I think the final thing that I'm taking away from today's podcast is the fact that actually everyone requires support, whether it be from a coach, a mentor, or just an understanding partner who you can sit alongside and chew the cud with. So for sure, if you are an entrepreneur setting up or scaling a business, do make sure you have other people in the tent who can give you direction, support, and perhaps can be that absolute needed ear when you do need to share frustrations, challenges, and the exciting conversations on the back of a business win. I'd like to thank Mike Ames for taking the time to travel to be on my Confessions of an Entrepreneur podcast. Of course, if you would like to watch this podcast or any other podcast in season 2 of our Confessions of an Entrepreneur podcast series, then please do download from wherever you consume your podcasts from. But for now, you have been watching Confessions of an Entrepreneur. My name is Carl Swansbury, and I really look forward to welcoming you, our viewers, to future Confessions of an Entrepreneur podcasts.